Well, hello YouTube, and welcome to Friday's edition of The Breakfast Club with Got That Funk. Sorry for posting late again this week. My Thursday just was impossible. Anyway, here I am, and this is going to be a very brief video by comparison to most of the videos I post on this channel. I was thinking about a conversation I was having the other day on one of the Breakfast Club videos. I think it was the one by Sword Sage. And I mentioned this to Phoenix Writer, who's one of our most long-term and dedicated commenters and fans of the Breakfast Club, that I'm an inch away from advocating the following. You know, an awful lot of people who don't like what's going on politically in America are, stressing the urgent need for everybody who can vote to vote. And if you haven't already registered to vote, I would absolutely suggest, urge even, that you register and make a point of voting this November. It's a cliche. Every election people say, oh, this election is the most important election of your lifetime. But in 2018, that is pretty much certainly true, literally true. If we don't do something to try to take back the government, to rein in Trump, there is literally no telling what the following 2 years might entail. And people say that they want to flip the House, from being Republican dominated to Democratic dominated. Same with the Senate. They want to flip the Senate. Now, I have always been a fan of the way the United States government was constructed by the founders in the Constitution. I think the separation of powers and the way it's all laid out and everything makes an awful lot of sense. And you can easily see the reasoning behind what they were doing. And when they set up the legislature, they had the lower house, which was elected every 2 years, and the upper house, which had a third of its members elected every 6 years. Well, their members would be elected for 6-year terms, but they could only get reelected a third at a time. So it's impossible in one election to flip the Senate in terms of change all of the senators, but it is not impossible to change all of the representatives in the House of Representatives. I think it's one of the most genius things the founders ever did when they were constructing our Constitution and deciding how to make government accountable to the people, to have such a brief term as 2 years. 2 years is in political terms, it can seem like forever sometimes, but it also takes an awful lot of time to get things done in politics. And politics shouldn't move too fast because it's very easy to make mistakes, and then you spend the rest of your time trying to make up for them or catch up to them or whatever. Anyway, I'm digressing. My point is, with 2-year terms, someone is basically in a position to be voted out. If you're not happy with the way they're doing, you don't have to wait too long to get rid of them. You can get rid of them right away. And I think it is not a partisan issue to say that way too much of Congress is corrupt by big money. Some of them are corrupted by big oil, some are corrupted by big pharma, some by the gun lobby. There's a whole host of different moneyed interests, Wall Street, etc., which basically blatantly nowadays buy politicians by paying for their campaigns and so forth. And it occurs to me that when it comes to the House of Representatives, anyway, in particular, because you could literally vote them all out if you wanted to, that maybe that's the best possible way to flip the House, rather than just try to get as many, say, Democrats elected as possible to take away the Republican majority, which I still think is important. If I was here to say to every single person who intended to vote against the incumbent, no matter which party we're talking about, you could literally get rid of everybody in Congress. And of course, there are some good representatives in the House who represent their constituencies fairly and who aren't necessarily as corrupt as some of the more corrupt members of the House. But I think that the whole gradient is part of the problem. I think the only people who I wouldn't suggest voting out are people who make a point of not taking any corporate donations. I mean, if someone doesn't take any corporate donations and they fund their campaign entirely by donations of private citizens, then I think that person we can fairly say has probably not been corrupted. But so I think in the House of Representatives, you got like Ro Khanna, for example, who fits that description. But in general, I'm here for this video to advocate for voting against the incumbent, whether it's a Republican, whether it's a Democrat, don't matter what district we're talking about. When it comes to the House of Representatives anyway, not necessarily the Senate, but when it comes to the House of Representatives, let's get rid of all of them. Why am I suggesting this? Not just because I want to flip the majority from Republican to Democrat, although that factors into my thinking, of course. The real reason I'm advocating for voting against the incumbent is because if you could change the entire House, or even 90% of the people there, you know, because of course not everybody's going to play ball and vote against the incumbent. But if you could make this like a national drive to get people to vote against the incumbent, and it mostly succeeded, you would send a message that would be heard around the world, even in the White House, which is notoriously, like, you know, tone deaf in terms of, you know, what's going on in the country. But I really think that if you have someone representing your district who has been there before, and you've got an opponent to that person who is at least credible, vote for their opponent. Get rid of the incumbents, even the good ones, even the well-established ones who are working hard. Get rid of them all. If they take corporate money, get rid of them. We need to send a message that we want an end to corruption, and if they're not going to end it for us, we'll end it for them. Give it some thought. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I look forward to any and all comments. And hopefully we'll have JJ Talks here in the Breakfast Club tomorrow. Until next week, thanks for watching. Peace.